Hello and welcome to today's podcast. Today we are talking about all things cyber security and how to keep you and your business safe online. I'm going to be chatting with Kimberly Roberts-Salee from Cyber Wardens. Kimberly is a senior marketing communications and stakeholder engagement professional with 15 years of experience across multiple industries, including tourism, business events, government, aviation, and professional services. As the head of marketing and communications for Cyber Wardens, she is passionate about raising awareness around the importance of small business cybersecurity and empowering small business owners and employees to increase their cyber resilience and learn how to stay safe online. Kimberly is a wealth of knowledge. She is super engaging and not only shares the risks and common pitfalls that small business owners can face, but how we can overcome them, the small things that we can do that make a huge difference to keeping our business and us safe online. Hi, Kimberly. Welcome to the podcast.
Alicia, thank you so much for having me.
Can you tell me a little bit more about Cyber Wardens?
Absolutely. So, Cyber Wardens is an initiative of the Council of Small Business Organizations of Australia. So, that's also called COSBOA. They're essentially a peak body of peak bodies. So, they represent small businesses in Australia. And so, the initiative is government funded. So, it's funded by the Australian government. And it's an initiative that was designed for small businesses to essentially deliver online training for small businesses to be able to gain the cybersecurity knowledge that they need to apply into their businesses. What's at the core of Cyber Wardens is that unlike, uni courses or anything that's really complicated or time consuming, Cyber Wardens is really accessible and it's delivered in language that's really simple and that anyone without a tech background can follow and can understand. And it's not intimidating or anything, too much jargon or anything tech related. The main thing that I forgot to mention is that it's free, which is a huge consideration, especially for small businesses. A lot of cybersecurity training is really expensive. It's really extensive. So the fact that the course is free is it's a resource that they can just access without needing to pay for anything.
Which is an incredible resource to have because we're really good at what we do as small business owners, but how do we stay safe online? And that is something that Cyber Wardens does really, really well.
Exactly. And it's any small business as well. It's really relevant for anyone from, massage therapists, anyone within the healthcare industry, all the way to accountants and, mortgage brokers. So it really runs the whole gamut of small businesses in Australia. But it's also really relevant for anyone who operates online. So that's everyone essentially who is online at any given time and really in any country.
And so, how prevalent is cybercrime and how much does it affect small business?
So we did some research about a year ago, and we interviewed a range of small businesses. And what we found is that a lot of small businesses think that they're actually too small to be attractive to cyber criminals. So they think, cyber criminals, they want to talk about, they want to reach the Medibanks, the Optuses of the world, the big companies where there's a lot of information, a lot of data. But that's actually a fallacy. And actually 43% of all cybercrime targets small businesses. So that's almost half of all the cyber attacks. And that includes anything from those big corporations and those big cyber crimes that we hear about in the media, but anything all the way down to, like a mom and dad kind of scam as well, and those text messages. So through this whole range of cyber crimes, almost half is directed specifically at small businesses. And that's because small businesses, we wear many hats as small business owners and employees. We don't necessarily have the time or the resources to check everything. Cyber criminals know that. And they also know that small businesses don't necessarily have the same infrastructure in terms of cybersecurity that bigger corporations or bigger organizations do. So they're an easy target. And that's why it's really important that they're aware that they are that attractive to cyber criminals.
Wow. What are the biggest cybersecurity risks targeting small businesses?
There's a few types of cyber crimes that are especially prevalent within the small business landscapes. There's three that we talk about quite often and that we see happen quite often for small businesses. So the first one is business email compromise. So that also, we call it an inbox break-in. And that is essentially what it says on the box. It's when cyber criminals break into your inbox. And once they're in your inbox, they have access to all the information that you hold in there. So think about, what do you have in your inbox? You've got, employee information. I'm sure you have passwords and logins that you've shared with people, which is also a no-no. You've got potentially some financial information, some business data. So once they're in there, they've got access to all that information. And then from there, they can launch secondary attacks. So they can impersonate you. They can impersonate your employees. They can send fake invoices to your customers. So if you think of your inbox as your house, think of all the valuables that you have in your house. That's where basically once the cyber criminals or once the criminals are in your house, they can pretty much have access to everything that's precious for you. So that's the first one. Then there's two other crimes as well. So there's fake invoices, which I mentioned just before, and that's when cyber criminals will use, essentially, they'll replicate an invoice from either a supplier. So let's say you receive a monthly invoice from your accountant. You know what the invoice looks like, you know the branding, you know the formatting, you're used to seeing it. So they're going to use the same formatting, the same logo, the same branding, but they'll change the banking details so that once you receive the invoice, you think you're paying your accountant, and you think that your accountant has just updated their banking details, and you pay the invoice without necessarily checking whether or not that's a legitimate invoice. And conversely, they can do the same. They can replicate your invoices and send that to your customers, and then your customers receive an invoice from you that they think is legitimate, and they pay it, and unfortunately the money goes to a cyber criminal. So there's kind of like there's a double-edged sword to the fake invoices. You can lose a lot of money by paying a fake supplier, but you can also lose quite a lot of, you can affect your reputation to your customers by having them think that they're paying you where they're paying a cyber criminal. So that's number two. And then number three is online banking fraud. So that is when cyber criminals access your bank account. So essentially, they'll be able to do that through using a combination of passwords and logins. So often they'll have been able to access some of the logins that you've used in the past or on other accounts. And they'll just use that combination time and time again over multiple accounts until something sticks. And if it's your bank account, well, then they're in your bank account, and they can do pretty much everything you can do in your bank account. So they can drain your funds, transfer them all to themselves, and leave you, unfortunately, with a huge hole in your bank account.
All three of these things sound catastrophic.
Terrifying.
In nature. Yeah, exactly. Terrifying in nature.
Yeah. It can be anything as innocuous as, clicking on a link by accident, thinking that you're logging into your bank account, for example, and putting in your login details for what you think is your bank account, but they're capturing those login details, and then they can go into your real bank account. It can be just opening the invoice and thinking that you're paying your supplier, you're paying your accountant, but you're not, because you didn't necessarily check that the banking details match. So it's terrifying, and it's really, it can be like a second, a moment's inattention that can really wreak havoc on your reputation, your financials, and your mental health as well.
Wowza. What kind of red flags and warning signs should small businesses look out for when it comes to cybersecurity?
There's a few things, and when I say them, they'll sound pretty obvious, but it's really important to just kind of always remember them and have them at the forefront of our mind, because a lot of them will go, yeah, of course, I need to check the banking details, but I'll just go through a few of them that are kind of like the most easy to check, easy to notice, and really like the biggest red flags that will alert you that you might be targeted. So the first one is when we talked about those invoices. So those change of banking details. A lot of small businesses, I'd say probably most small businesses at this stage, they all have accounting software where they'll have, your supplier's banking details saved in your software. So you're used to just paying your suppliers. At any time when you're prompted to change those details, that should raise a red flag right away. And you should know, you should pause and definitely double check with the supplier whether or not they have changed their banking details before actioning anything. It's an extra step that you have to do. But given that the average cost of a cyber attack on a small business is about $50,000 now in Australia, it's short-term pain for long-term gain in my mind. And same thing with the invoices. Another red flag is if you receive an invoice that you're not expecting. So a lot of small businesses, we kind of know like the expenses that are coming in. We have a good idea of the invoices that are coming in. We forecasted for them. We know what suppliers will be sending us an invoice. If you get something that you weren't expecting, especially at a really busy time, because they will take advantage of the fact that you might want to batch process everything at the end of financial year because you're so busy. Anything that you weren't expecting, again, that's a huge red flag to kind of pause and to make sure that you verify and you check independently with the supplier before you pay any of those invoices. So that's just two of them, but there's quite a few more. The main ones is really making sure that you look at the email addresses that you're receiving an email from and making sure that there's no typos, or just having a look at the email address to make sure that it matches the person that they're saying it's being sent from. Often they'll add like an extra letter, or they'll change an A to an O. They'll put two V's instead of a W. Anything that, like, if you're looking really quickly, you might not notice it, but and you think that you're receiving an email from someone that you know, but in fact you're receiving it from the cyber criminals. Same thing if they're asking you to do something strange in the email. If you're receiving an email from your boss who's asking you to go on a secret mission without telling the rest of the team, and it really doesn't seem in character for your boss, and she would never say anything like that, or that doesn't sound on brand for her, check with her before you go ahead and action anything that's in that email.
Yeah.
So it's essentially trusting our gut, and anything that seems off is usually because it is.
Yeah, definitely. And I can imagine at those busy times not noticing a W, not like it's so easy to miss.
Yeah.
And literally after one of the sessions that we had with you with our clients, where we were doing the actual event sent me an invoice and it said payment details had changed. And you've just actually reminded me, I have to call them and be like, is this you? Like, seriously,
there you go.
you actually tell me this, because now I'm like, whoa, don't just change bank details without giving the supplier.
Correct. Well done. That's a great example. And yeah, it's also double checking as well. And when you call them, make sure that you call them from, like, look up the number online. Don't call the number on the invoice, because they'll change the banking details, but they'll also change the phone number on the invoice, because they'll be like, oh, they'll call that number and then they'll verify that the banking details have indeed changed. So definitely call them from an independent source. But yeah, it happens a lot, and they're getting more and more sophisticated. So it looks real.
Yeah.
It looks like you're receiving an invoice and you've just been there. So you think, of course, yeah, that makes sense. So yes, that's a really good one. I'm glad you caught that one.
Well, it's just implementing what it is you're actually hearing and what you're learning, because I don't really want to have to outpay $50,000 on an average, just because we've just made one tiny mistake. No, thank you. That would be not fun as far as I'm concerned.
100%. And the one thing as well that's really important to remember with that $50,000, for example, that you could stand to lose, is that if you pay that $50,000 to the cyber criminals, you're also still liable to the real supplier. So you still need to pay them for real. So it's not just the $50 that you've lost, it's actually paying your real invoice. So it can blow out really quickly. And most small businesses can't withstand $50,000 loss. That would decimate them. I know myself, in this cost of living crisis that we're all living through, I can think of a million things that I could do with 50 grand. And that is definitely not funneling that to cyber criminals.
Yeah, I could definitely buy a lot of shoes and then do something amazing with another 45,000.
House reno, for example.
Exactly. All right. So what are some of the habits that we all have that inadvertently make us vulnerable to cyber attacks?
So there's quite a few things that we do online. And first, I want to preface this by saying that I've done them all. We do them all. So this is not victim blaming. I don't want to shame anyone into thinking that, you shouldn't be doing this. It's really just important to notice when we're doing those habits and knowing what we can do instead to make us a lot safer online. So the first one is passwords. Passwords is a huge one. If you think of any of your accounts as, if you think of the passwords as the key to any of your accounts, as soon as a cyber criminal has the key to your house, for example, or to your practice or to your shop front, they're able to get in. So we want to make sure that we set up really strong passwords. So that means we want long, strong, and unique passwords on all our accounts. We want to make sure that they're a combination of characters, letters, numbers, symbols, and we want to make sure that we don't reuse it over multiple accounts. So that's where if you're reusing your passwords over multiple accounts, they'll just reuse that combination over and over. That's called credential stuffing. And that's where they are able to, at some point, hit the jackpot. Also with passwords, I know it's really tempting to put your pet's name. It's easy to remember your kids' names, your business name, but anything that makes it recognizable or anything that makes it really easy for cyber criminals to crack into is something we want to avoid. And then on top of those really strong, unique passwords, we want to add that multi-factor authentication, which is the that second layer of protection. So I'm sure you've received, for example, if you log into your bank account, you might have to go into your phone and verify your identity with a text message or open an app to verify that it's you. So that's multi-factor authentication. And essentially, if we keep that house analogy where the password is your key to your house, that multi-factor authentication is your alarm system. So it makes it virtually impossible for cyber criminals to break into your accounts. So the password is a big one, and also sharing your passwords in a business, especially when you've got multiple licenses and it costs money to add licenses every time you use a piece of software. It might be really tempting to share a password around or share a login around with a lot of people on the team. But the more you're sharing that, the more you're compromising not only the combination of password and username, but having multiple people on one account means that you can't really necessarily pinpoint if something happens. You might be giving people further or higher access into your software than they really need. So making sure that we have unique logins for staff as well is a really important one. There's a bunch of other habits. I could go on and on. One that's really important that I will say is anything with software updates. So I know it's really annoying. You're on your computer, you're writing something, you're writing a proposal, you're writing a quote, you're in a Zoom meeting, and your software update pops up. We have a tendency to snooze it because, I'll do it later. But the more you snooze your software updates, the more your computer is compromised or your device becomes more compromised to security glitches, because those software updates essentially update those site security settings on your software. So really important to set up those automated software updates and to action them when they come up.
Yeah. I think that the password security, I work with other organizations, and this is something that I have been very proactive in talking how important it is, two-factor authentication, etc.
Yes.
And knowing this from, my husband James and business partner he's been working with IT and international people for a long time. So he's much more across this and just aware of the importance of cybersecurity. And it has been a big learning curve for everybody to understand why we don't send email passwords, especially to the website and things like that I'm like, one of them did it as a joke, and he made it like the organization's name with my name, April Fools.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and he got
That is not a joke to make.
That's right, exactly. But he totally got me. But I'm like, oh, I cannot believe that I just fell for that.
Yeah.
And the other thing was realizing, like, before I understood, so the last couple of years, obviously much more across this. Earlier on, no. And it's the same password for,
hundreds of accounts.
Hundreds, 120 different accounts. And my Apple came up and said, this has been compromised, this password. So you
absolutely. It's just easy. It's human nature for us to want to take the easy path. Because we're so busy, because our brain only has a certain capacity of information that we can hold. And a really good way to manage those passwords and making sure that you are able to implement long, strong passwords everywhere without having to remember 120 is using a password manager, for example. There's quite a few on the market, and it's hard. I can't really it's really hard for me to give a specific one because it depends on your business needs and everything. But there's a lot on the market, so it's really important to get that password manager to store all your passwords, and then you only have to remember one, and it's your master key password, and that's all you need to remember. And all your other passwords are stored on the cloud in encrypted software where it's impossible for cyber criminals to access. And it means that you've got peace of mind that all your passwords, sorry, are really strong, and they're stored where they should be, not on your phone, not on a notes app, or not on a password spreadsheet on your desktop, but in the cloud in encrypted password manager.
So are there any other simple wins that small businesses could implement to help protect themselves online?
Yeah, so definitely, and I know that I've mentioned it, but if I can drive the point home to do one thing when you finish this podcast is go into your inbox and check that your password, if anything, ideally across all your accounts, but if we're going to start by one and kind of like incremental steps, go into your inbox, make sure that your password is really long, strong, a combination of characters and letters. And then once that's set up, make sure that you set up your multi-factor authentication on your inbox to start with. Because as we saw, your inbox is basically, it's the source of most of the data, and it's kind of like the single source of truth for your business. So if cyber criminals are able to get into that account, they can launch really devastating attacks. So that's what I would say, is just making sure that your password hygiene is really good, and start with your inbox and having that multi-factor authentication on top to make sure that you're doubly protected.
Yeah. Every time I annoyingly get out my phone for that code, I think, and I'm protecting our money, I'm protecting our money.
Correct. Just think of that $50,000 that you are not losing every time you have to put in. It is annoying. Like, I will recognize, it's an extra step. Like, again, we're all really busy. We want to make things as easy as possible, but it's an extra step that can save you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Do you have any examples of social media or email hacks that you can share with us?
There's so many. There's one that it's on our website as well. It's a small business based in Melbourne. He's a podiatrist. The name of his business is Strida. And he recently, or a few years ago actually, but it's been kind of ongoing, he suffered, unfortunately, a cyber attack through his Facebook account. So he got a message from a friend, and it's always, they use that sense of urgency. So it was a kind of like a distressful email from message on Facebook from a friend saying, please click here to help me. So he clicked on there, logged into what he thought was Facebook, and unfortunately from there the cyber criminals were able to access all of his Facebook login details. And from there they took over his account and they basically blocked him out of his account, but then started posting really inappropriate content on his business account. So really like awful things like violent content, really inappropriate content. And it took him ages to be able to put a stop to it. And he lost money as well because they used the credit card details associated with his business account. And he lost about $12,000 from that. So it's really innocuous. It's a friend messaging you through Facebook, and you think that you're doing the right thing by helping your friend. And his name is Tien. He does say when we've talked to him that after he clicked on the link, he went, I really should have paused, and like I really should have reflected on whether or not my friend would actually be sending messages like that. But he was busy. He wanted to help his friend, and that was a really easy way for cyber criminals to get into his account. So there's countless examples of social media hacks, and it's really devastating for small businesses because a lot of small businesses use social media as their main marketing channels. It's free if you're doing organic content, and it's a really easy way to promote your business. And unfortunately, it's a really easy way for cyber criminals to also launch some really devastating attacks.
We had one at our clinic as well where we got an email saying I'd like to book 10 people in. We're like, yeah, sure, no worries. this is the credit card details. Can you pay for the driver? I'm sorry, I'm deaf and
Mm,
have surgery.
mm,
Kind of escalated. Like we were being really helpful. Oh, yeah, sure. So I charged the credit cards, had no idea that they were fraudulent cards. And it wasn't until I was at the post office about to transfer the money for the transport that I just thought something doesn't seem right
mm.
here. And I actually checked with my staff and they were like, stop, 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 it's a
Yeah,
scam, it's a scam.
yeah.
And so I called the bank straight away to be like, I've just charged this money to fraudulent transactions. What do I do? Like, I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. And we just reversed the thing. We blocked them. We sent it off to the police and just was like, so thankfully for us, we didn't lose any money. But the idea was you take money off their credit cards and then you transfer that to them for the
Yes.
driver
Yeah.
and they'll pay you back when they arrive. And obviously they
Yeah.
never arrive. So I think it's been done to death. I've seen it heaps of other times, lots of different iterations of it.
There's so
Um,
many. There's another one actually, and that one is it goes to the core of like human behavior, and that's one thing that cyber criminals really know is that they really prey on our emotions. And in fact, 95% of cyber attacks are due to human error. So it's really they know that and they really prey on that. And there was an example a few years ago. It was a funeral scam where these scammers posted a live stream of a funeral on Facebook, and they created a funeral page for a person, so they were able to go on a funeral home's website and see, so and so has passed away. So they replicated the whole Facebook page, and they basically put a live stream link where they ask people to pay. And you're mourning, you want to pay your respects to the person that you know, a loved one. So you're like, yeah, fine, I'll pay to watch the live stream. And yeah, they were essentially making money off mourners for someone who had just passed away. So they really prey on it's like the lowest level of decency to be preying on people who are mourning.
yeah.
And yeah, that was all through Facebook as well. So there's, like I said, there's countless examples, but that one really struck me because it's really preying on people
Yeah.
at their most vulnerable,
Yeah.
and they have no shame. They will do what it takes.
Yeah. To get that money. Kimberly, how do people find out more about what you guys offer in order to be able to really upskill themselves as a small business owner to stay safe online?
Yeah, there's the first step is our website, so cyberwardens.com.au, and then on the website we have a range of few different courses that we offer. So if someone wanted to do a really quick kind of 10-minute intro to the basics that some of the concepts that we discussed in this podcast, that's our foundations course, and that's online. So you can do that from a laptop or from your phone. We also have a foundations webinar where it's the same content but delivered in person or live through a webinar by a Cyber Wardens educator. So that's for people who want to get that more live engagement. There's a Q&A session at the end as well. So if people have any burning cybersecurity questions, they can ask it during the webinar. We have that live, and we have the webinar on demand as well for anyone who wants to just do it and watch the webinar at a time that's more convenient for them. And then we also have a longer form course, which is our Cyber Wardens Level 1 course, which just deep dives into the concepts that we talked about and is a bit more comprehensive for anyone who wants to do that program. So the one thing that's really important as well to mention, especially for your audience, is that the Level 1 and the Cyber Wardens webinar, they are eligible for CPD points. So anyone who is looking to upskill and to earn those continuous professional development points through their peak body, those webinars and that Cyber Wardens Level 1 courses are eligible for it as well. So that's a really good way to upskill, but also to meet your CPD requirements, which I know a lot of associations have. So it's a good way to, it's a win-win situation.
Just to distinguish for our USA people who we know listen as well, that's for the Australian-based associations.
Correct. Yes, thank you for mentioning this. So yes, it is for the Australian-based associations, but of course, like I said before, the concepts apply to anyone in any country.
100%. Though it was so valuable and so helpful. Even like I said, just to look at that invoice through a whole new lens to go, like
That's amazing, and that's exactly what this course is for. It's to raise your awareness, to empower you to think, and to make you, and when I say you, anyone who does the course, to empower you to really think and to recognize the signs of cybercrime before it's too late.
yeah, that's amazing. Kimberly, thank you so much for your time today and your wisdom and your expertise. I really appreciate you coming and sharing this with our listeners. I know that I trust it'll be really helpful for them to be able to really see and know and be able to just kind of, like you said, just take that sense to go, hang on, this doesn't feel right, which means it's probably not, and
Correct.
checking in with that. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Alicia. And yeah, I hope it was helpful, and I hope I've saved some of your listeners thousands and thousands of dollars. And yes, cyberwardens.com.au is where to go for any more information and for a range of resources and all our courses.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alicia.